So, in the last episode that we talked about a Woody Allen movie, we actually brought up this weird sociopathic cynicism in in some of the female characters. And this one has this interesting balance of females. It's Vicky Cristina Barcelona. Anybody who has not seen it yet, just go see it. Gosh, what are you doing? What do you have to be doing that you can't watch a lovely movie set in, Spain? It's got Javier Bardem, guys. Seriously, Javier Bardem. And a super amazing surprise later in the movie. So, if you haven't seen it, just go see it. But otherwise, I am going to be talking spoilers at this point. So, Woody Allen obviously directed and wrote this movie, as he often does. It is starring Rebecca Hall, who was actually the extra girl. She was Jude Law's cheating wife ironically, in A Rainy Day in New York. And it's also got Scarlett Johansson, and like I said, Javier Bardem, and Penelope Cruz. Yes, you heard me right. It is about these two friends who are going on a vacation in Spain. One of them is about to get married, or just got married. And one of them had a breakup. She is a little more open to adventurous relationships. That's Scarlett Johansson's character. And Javier Bardem is a mysterious, interesting painter who shows up at one party that they go to. So, it's a Woody Allen movie, so what do you expect? You expect a weirdly stilted dialogue. It's just his very own brand of dialogue that is often very unnatural. But if you get the right actors, it does not matter. They can do it. They can work it out. Like Javier Bardem, he can figure it out. Penelope Cruz, she can figure it out when it comes to weird-ass Woody Allen dialogue. It's got the similar feeling of built-in nostalgia in the movie. When you have these two, there's a shit ton of voiceover too, which he's definitely done in movies before, but this one has just an exorbitant amount of it, where it will explain the characters and explain what's going on and stuff that you can easily figure out yourself, but it keeps doing it. But you've got these two friends who are going to Spain. Like I said, one of them's newly married, the other one is more open to relationships. Javier Bardem, like a gangster, just walks up to these two very, very hot girls and says, "Hey, you guys want to come with me to, somewhere, some island or something like that? I'm heading out there. I have to look at some stuff. You want to come with me?" And something that I've remembered ever since the first time I ever saw this movie was when he was like, "Yeah, we'll hang out, we'll drink wine, we'll make love." And it's just like, dude, you can just do that? Just like lay it out like that? That's what's going to be happening? So the married girl, the one who's played by Rebecca Hall, she is resistant, at least ostensibly resistant. She is outraged and like, "Oh, what a horrible person. How would you come up to us like this?" The dialogue is actually pretty well designed in this encounter, the initial encounter, because she rejects it, but leaves the door open rhetorically to the idea. So there's some psychological thing going on that admits of the fact that she may not be happy within her marriage already. But then you've also got Scarlett Johansson, who is more interested in it. She's like, entertains the idea and encourages it at a certain point that, there's this really interesting, good-looking painter. He's got a great red shirt on, I think I remember from the initial meeting. But there's this great-looking, interesting painter, and it might be fun. Let's go hop in a plane with him where he's flying. Let's hop in a plane with him, go to this island area, this oasis or whatever, and have some fun. And she says, as a lovely coy girl ought to say, "Well, I don't know if there's going to be any love making, but I can join you and we can see how it goes." So they end up going with him to this place and have some discussions about various things. Rebecca Hall goes back she's clearly interested in him as a person, but goes back to her own room and tells Scarlett Johansson's character, just leave it alone. Don't be doing that stuff. But Scarlett Johansson goes up to his room and they have this back and forth. And again, it's Woody Allen dialogue. So it's weird and it's stilted. A lot of it is really unnatural, but it has its own flavor. That's the thing. It really does have its own flavor. It's sort of interesting to see an 80-year-old man speaking through, well, this was a few years ago, but an older man speaking through a bunch of women and this, really this dynamo painter and all this stuff. So anyway, he's about to have this engagement with Scarlett Johansson, they're in bed, it's about to happen. She feels sick instantly and goes down with like food poisoning for several days thereafter, which in turn forces Javier Bardem and Rebecca Hall, the other girl, to spend a lot more time together. They have to go do things together because neither one of them have a companion now because Scarlett Johansson's down. And so they have to go spend time together and go to dinners together, and they are thrust into these romantic situations just by the circumstance. On the other side, you've got these stories that have been floating around about him and his ex-wife. And his ex-wife is Penelope Cruz. And apparently they had some very passionate situations that would lead to, lots of yelling in the streets and occasionally violence. And so there are like legends around this area about how they interact with each other. They're both artists, so they're both very temperamental. But when Penelope Cruz shows up for the first time in this movie, and she has this back and forth with Scarlett Johansson and Javier Bardem, it is it's some of the best stuff I've ever seen in any movie. I swear. I know that sounds incredibly hyperbolic, but my God, does she deliver it and have such an incredible subtext in her character in this scene, unlike anything I've virtually ever seen before, outside of like Cate Blanchett and stuff. It's like the subtext and the ferocity and anger that is built into the way this character interacts, because she speaks, half of it in English, half of it in Spanish. It's just this back and forth thing, and there's this real tension between all the characters at this point. There's something so amazing about this performance in this moment that I can't even describe. You have to go watch it. And then she goes on, like some of the other scenes with her aren't as completely inundated with fireworks in the way that she does it, but they're still fantastic. She has multiple fantastic moments, and most of the incredible moments are the ones where she's not doing too much, It's like she's really holding back all these things internally. You could see that she really has this character and is capable of doing it. So oh my God, I can't describe how much I love her performance in this movie. Especially that first moment. My God, how good is it? So you've got Scarlett Johansson. The characters go on, and it's like Javier Bardem and Scarlett Johansson, and Penelope Cruz shows back up. Because after Rebecca Hall, she has this romantic thing with Javier Bardem, and they end up sleeping together, but just once. And then after they sleep together, she is a little more standoffish, and he's standoffish, because it's like, okay, where is this going to go? She is married, which is what all the dickhead guys do. It's like, no, now that I slept with her, now I'm worried about her being married. But so he reconnects with Scarlett Johansson when she gets better, which is another dickhead thing that, that dickheads do. He reconnects with her, and they start having a relationship. But now Rebecca Hall is feeling a little jealous of the fact that she had this great moment of spontaneous lovemaking. I would never call it that. That's just such a strange way to describe that act. But so they have this spontaneous lovemaking. It was amazing. She enjoyed it. She's jealous now of Scarlett Johansson being with him. And so through much of the next part of the movie, it's her trying to suss out some interest from him, because they haven't even talked since it happened. He just went with Scarlett Johansson and they moved on. But so there's a little bit of that, and she's like, oh, no, I have a husband, I should be, sticking with him. And then he shows up, the husband does, and he's just this little guy, and he's not especially impressive, especially up to Javier Bardem. But she is trying to rationalize that, okay, she has to stick with her relationship and her marriage. Obviously, morally, that should have been in the first case. None of that stuff should have happened anyway. But she's trying to rationalize now, okay, now I just move on, and that was a thing, but now I just go back to my marriage. But she's still got that inkling like, oh, well, why doesn't he still want me or whatever? But as Scarlett Johansson and Javier Bardem's characters are getting closer, then Penelope Cruz shows up. And that's where we have that incredible scene that I absolutely love, one of my favorite ever. And after that, they have just like this threesome, not directly a threesome, not in the beginning, it's not directly a threesome, but they're just working with each other, and there's this effect that Scarlett Johansson's character has on the two that tempers both of their intensity. So they could still be around each other and spend time together and help each other with their art without going all the way to the explosive version of their relationship. Eventually, Scarlett Johansson feels like, it's this weird parasitic thing, and she doesn't want to be in it anymore. And so eventually she decides that she's going to leave and she's going to go do her own thing, which is a healthy thing, obviously, to realize at that point. And then the other two, Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem, they have their big blow up. And Penelope Cruz's character attempts to self-delete. And so that's a crescendo on that arc. Well, not even a crescendo. It's like the penultimate crescendo. Can you have a penultimate crescendo? I don't think so. Anyway, so she tries that. He stops her, tries to help. Rebecca Hall shows back. Oh, they run into each other. Rebecca Hall's character and Javier Bardem run into each other at some point. He tries to rekindle things and plays the whole thing like this isn't a good thing, but he's just a gangster badass when it comes to working with all these females. But so he plays the whole thing in a certain way, and she shows up at his house in his studio, and they're about to go at it. And Penelope Cruz shows up with a gun, takes a couple of shots, and with the gun. She wasn't like, give me a drink. She shoots at them with the gun. He stops her. Rebecca Hall's character is like, okay, well, I wanted passionate, but this is a little much for me. She goes back to her husband, and that's like the end of the movie. Is that she had her tryst with Javier Bardem and is back with her husband. He is trying to figure out Penelope Cruz being an insane person, and Scarlett Johansson goes and gets a role in the Marvel universe. So that's the movie. Vicky Cristina Barcelona. Like I said, it has a ton of voiceover, so if that's annoying to you, then you want to keep that in mind. Javier Bardem is 100% dynamic and interesting the entire time. It just doesn't matter. Rebecca Hall she doesn't do great sometimes with Woody Allen dialogue, but she plays this character really well. Scarlett Johansson does what she needs to. She's an excellent actress. She does what she needs to in this kind of weird role, because she's not the lead, and she doesn't have a whole lot to do except be a foil for other characters. But still, she does a very good job. Penelope Cruz, incredible, outstanding. It looks great. It's just enjoyable. Overall, very good movie, and much better than the other one that we recently talked about. But, as you know, I have kind of a deeper interest in what these movies are saying, even if the filmmaker doesn't even mean to thematically say any of these things. What do we have? We have three female characters. We have the Rebecca Hall character, who is married but decides to cheat on her husband one time and tries to do it another time, but circumstances have prevented her from pursuing it more. We have Scarlett Johansson, who is, at this time, she wants the adventure because she had a recent breakup that didn't go well. She wants the adventure, but she realizes once she gets to another side of the adventure that that's not really what she wanted, and moves on with the rest of her life. And then you've got Penelope Cruz, who is a lunatic, but a lunatic within a certain range of codependency that actually makes it pretty interesting. So, as we know from Woody Allen in general, one of the things that he does, he'll pluck in some really cynical, self-centered women. And that's Rebecca Hall in this case. I mean, she is married, and she should be totally fine with her marriage and happy about it. But she, even from the first instances, even though she's a little resistant, she does want to have that adventurous moment. And it could be a matter of jealousy relative to her friend who has that freedom. And there could be some kind of psychological duality there in that, okay, here's the girl who is stuck in a marriage. Here's the girl who's free. Both of them try to overextend that step into adventure, and both of them are hurt for it. They both are better people at the end of it because they went through it. And then Penelope Cruz is just the extreme adventure woman who is just, she will take your passions and her passions and run it up to 1,000. And that's where it's going to be. I mean, obviously the male fantasy, what is the male fantasy? To have Scarlett Johansson, Penelope Cruz available at all times for, individually or as a threesome. That's the male fantasy. And you're an artist, and you're incredibly good looking, and you live in Spain, and you're really good at painting, and you're extremely suave and capable. And all of the women want you, even though they may or may not be married. I mean, that is definitely a male fantasy. But for every character, every single character, the adventure, the allure of the adventure, and the pursuit of the adventure lead to something bad, lead to them realizing that's not actually what they want. Now, when it comes to Rebecca Hall's character, she's kind of an asshole, so it's like, you got to dip your foot into this thing and then come back and there are no consequences. That's really messed up. But her husband is kind of this weirdo tiny guy who's not especially impressive. So, I'm not going to begrudge her too much in that situation. It's definitely not moral, but it is Javier Bardem versus this guy. So ultimately, though, Woody Allen is not as harsh when it comes to the women. Just like In Annie Hall, it's a similar situation wherein at a certain point she loses interest because she's interested in something else. So you got to think that Woody Allen, throughout so many of his movies representing this situation, that there's something, psychological or emotional that he's working out in having these cynical women who will not remain committed to their relationships or remain committed to their marriages and seek out something else, something adventurous, and then are hurt by that. Now, it could be expanded even more into thinking about culturally that we've extended adolescence. So we've said that, okay, you get to be a kid for longer instead of growing up and having a family. And so when you're in kid mode, you're in adventure mode. You're in the mode where you go backpacking through Europe and you're looking for the love of your life. When you extend that aspect of humanity, that range of psychological experience, then you're going to look for it in more context than you otherwise would. So historically, you may have been, once you got into a marriage and once you started having children, then okay, the adventure portion of the story is over. It may be a new kind of adventure, but it's not the adventure that it was before. It's not the one where you're out searching for the romantic adventure. It could be a romantic adventure within your marriage or something like that, but that's no longer what you're looking for, is just to be stimulated by people that you barely know. You have closed that chapter of your story. But when you extend the adolescence, then it just keeps being that adventure story all the way throughout. And so whether it's for men or for women, the men in this case who are just trying to get threesomes with incredibly hot actresses, or the women who are just trying to have random trysts in foreign lands with mysterious painters, it's just overliving that adventure portion of your life, or at least even just a superficial adventure portion of your life. So Woody Allen seems to have an interest in the idea of saying that, like we talked about, number one, in the other review, that just because you have a lot of money, it doesn't fulfill you. It doesn't mean that your things are great for you. And there's still that disgusting, seedy, hidden underbelly of wealthy people and high society. But also that it would actually be great if people could grow up and stop short of the destructive adventures that we seek just because, a fear of missing out or something like that, or because we're stuck in adolescence. So anyway, yeah, that's Vicky Cristina Barcelona. It's one of those movies that I thoroughly enjoy, and having been to Europe and having had virtually identical experiences as Javier Bardem did while I was in a foreign European country. It's actually hilarious how close it is. Then I could definitely say that you don't want to push the adventure too far. You don't want to be reliant on those things doing too much and that being too much of what you're searching for. At the end of the day, you do want to save the princess and then see her, make sure that she's protected and cared for. You don't just want to keep saving princesses, because each subsequent one that you do renders the whole endeavor less meaningful. So anyway, yeah, that's Woody Allen's Vicky Cristina Barcelona. Let me know what you think about it, if you saw it, if I missed anything that was complex, any thematics or underlying ideas that you think were there. Subscribe, please, and otherwise I will see you on the next one. All right, bye.